Well, hello, good evening. My name is Kami Akhavan. I'm the managing director of the USC Dornsife Center for the Political Future. I'm also an instructor here at USC. One of the courses I teach is called Doing Good: How to Start and Run a Successful Nonprofit Organization. It's been my great pleasure and privilege to teach this 2-unit course in the Dornsife Toolkit class for the last 10 semesters. Today, you're going to be hearing from some of the amazing alum from that course. These are students who, during the course of that semester, they stood out. By the time they graduated, they stood out. And in life since then, they are standing out. They're going to be sharing some of their lessons and trials, tribulations from the world of nonprofits for your benefit. If you're interested in working for a nonprofit, starting a nonprofit, or improving your nonprofit, then this is a podcast and a video that is absolutely worth your time. If nothing else, you'll gain some insights. You'll most definitely be inspired. So thank you for joining us today. If you're watching on Facebook live stream, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on the Let's Find Common Ground podcast. The process for today is that we'll be interviewing 4 people in succession. Then we'll have a group conversation. The entire program will last for just about 1 hour. My first guest will be Laura Calero. Laura is currently the philanthropy manager at Achieve Miami. She's an artist for the USC Arts and Climate Collective, and she was the former vice president and advocacy chair for Challah for Hunger. Laura, welcome. Good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, great pleasure. It's been a while since we connected. I think you were in the class in the fall of 2021, which seems like forever ago. Those were
Yep.
the COVID days. So now we don't have our masks. We can see each other. But I wanted to ask you, Laura, you stood out in my mind during the class and have since. But I wanted to ask about your own nonprofit journey. Where did it begin, and how did that beginning change your life?
Yes, so I was always very inspired by nonprofit work. Of course, in middle and high school, you had to do service requirements, but for me, I've always been beyond that. So I started up with beach cleanup, seems very simple, but that's what really inspired my environmental passion. I currently work for an education nonprofit. However, I live a very sustainable life myself. And so something that was just something to be for service hours really impacted my daily life today. The decisions I make, I really think about them consciously. I try to make sure that I'm as sustainable and as environmental as possible. And so it really has impacted me as a person individually. And then, of course, I decided to take this class. And then when I graduated, I went into work at a nonprofit. So I definitely do really love and admire mission-driven work. So I think that's kind of my journey so far. And I'm still working at the organization that I started at when I graduated.
Excellent. Well, I can imagine how little things like a beach cleanup, when you see a community come together, all working towards a collective goal, something that's bigger than themselves, how that can be very inspiring and motivating. Something similar for me too. Those beach cleanups were really moving experiences, but so are all of these kind of collective impact work. You mentioned that that's what drew you to this course, the Doing Good class. But if you can remember, why did you take that class in the first place? What brought us together? And
Yeah.
what's one of the things that stands out to you from that experience?
Yeah. So I was not in Dornsife. I was in Annenberg. I was a communications major. And so I didn't really know about this class, but my roommate, Erica, she was in Dornsife and she took the class, I think maybe the semester before I did. And she knew that I was very environmental, very mission driven. I love doing good work. And so she recommended the class for me. She's like, take it as an elective. And so I went for it. She knows me better than anyone. She's my best friend and roommate. So I trusted her and it went very well. I really attribute so much to this class, like my life now. I don't think if I would have taken this class, I probably would have ended up working at a nonprofit. Even though I do love nonprofit work, I probably would have just kept volunteering instead of actually going into nonprofit work. And then I think something that really stood out in the class, I know everything stood out, but the thing that I think about the most is when I first started working at Achieve Miami, the first project that I was put on was to completely redo their website. And mind you, nowhere on my resume did I put that I had UX experience, I had a web experience. They just kind of like took a chance on me because that's something that happens in nonprofits. We have lower resources. Um, and I remember one of the first things we learned in your class was nonprofit websites and where do you put the donate button and how you should organize the website. And so I went back to my school notes. I didn't even look at YouTube. I didn't even Google. I went back to my school notes from this class to see what I can do for the website. And so definitely really helped me. And I many times went back to my school notes. So it was a very helpful class.
I'm so glad to hear it. That doesn't happen a lot in someone's college experience where they go back to their class notes. So it's nice to hear that that some people do. And can you tell us a little bit about what is Achieve Miami? What are you doing there? What's that job like? And I know you had nonprofit dreams and ambitions. How does the reality of that work jibe with what you expected out of a career in this field?
Mhm. Yeah, so Achieve Miami is an education nonprofit local to Miami. We serve students from kindergarten all the way to the first year of college, and we provide them with educational and enrichment activities and courses to really just help bridge educational gaps for under-resourced students in Miami. So we're really just trying to set them up for success and achievement. So I am the philanthropy manager. I'm the philanthropy and marketing manager. So I started working mainly just grant writing, doing a lot of fundraising, donor management. I still do that. However, I have also transitioned into marketing. I was hired as a communications student because they never had anyone doing marketing or comms for them before. And so they decided to take a chance on someone to really run with that and do their comms. So I think to your point of that last part of the question is that I know nonprofits are smaller sometimes, especially local ones, and they have less capacity, lower resources, but I didn't anticipate how much we would be wearing so many hats. I am philanthropy manager, but I'm also marketing. Sometimes I have to fill in for program team, site directors. I sometimes have to chaperone students, right? There's a lot of things that we have to put on our plate, and we're expected to be flexible. We're expected to be willing and able to do it all. So that was something I wasn't really expecting. I knew, we had to do a lot, but I didn't expect having to do everything really in a way, and we all have to do it all at the same time. Um, but that's essentially kind of what I do. I do fundraising, I also do the marketing, I do the website as you heard, social media, email marketing, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. I think I remember we had a guest speaker once. It was John Cabara from the California Community Foundation who said, in order to be successful in nonprofit work, you have to be able to do two things. Number one, you have to be comfortable asking your friends and family for money. Number two is you need to be able to fix your own computer because you will not have an IT department. That's on you. And it sounds like you're wearing all those hats now, Laura. You're doing it all.
Definitely, definitely, yes. Resonate with that.
Resonate with that. Well, I wanted to see if you have any advice that you would share for a young person going to the nonprofit field. Would you say it's worth it, do it, or it depends, or please stay the hell away? What advice do you have for people who are looking to follow a path similar to the one you followed?
I definitely would say to do it. If you're mission driven, right? Everyone has different perspectives, different mindset, but if you're someone who really just loves to work for a brand that is mission driven, does not have to be a nonprofit. There are a lot of smaller niche brands that really focus on mission, right? Helping people, trying to solve a problem. I would definitely recommend doing nonprofits because I think I did kind of mention it as somewhat of a con that you wear a lot of hats, but I really do think it prepares you to be the best person you can be because you have to develop so many skills. You learn so many different things. You learn to be flexible. You learn to just have so many different skills, and it really sets you up for the rest of your career, I think, because you're expected to know a lot, to do a lot. And I think it's a great thing to do right after college because, again, it really prepares you to be the best employee possible, but then also really prepares you to have a great mindset because at the end of the day, even though you have all this work and you're filling up your plate and sometimes you feel frustrated, nonprofits have huge burnout rates. You always have your mission as your North Star, right? In those situations where you feel stressed out, where you want to quit, I want to get paid more, whatever it is, you're doing it for the mission. At the end of the day, that's what you always have to think about. It's like all this work is going to be put for good use, we're helping the community, we're helping animals, we're helping the environment, whatever it is, it really gives you that inspiration, that motivation to keep going forward. Whereas in other larger corporations, sometimes you don't have that fire, you don't have that spark, you don't have that thing that really keeps you going. And so I really do think nonprofits are, I think they're the best. I love them.
Well, I appreciate all those insights. And now if you're ready for it, we're going to go to speed round. You ready for that?
Okay, I am.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna ask you about 5 or 6 questions. We'll have 1 minute total. Best
Okay.
advice you've received about nonprofit work.
I think kind of what I said, mission is your North Star. Just always keep that in mind. Have a little post-it note.
Love that. 1 or 2 books that changed the way you think.
Um, as of recent, I read a book called Fascinate. It's more of a marketing book. It really just helps you understand different types of brands. It helps you identify the brand that you work for and how you can use different marketing strategies and tactics to engage your audience.
Fascinating. I just wrote that down. Thank you.
Yes.
Uh, Going back to your time at USC, what was your favorite place to eat on or near campus?
Kava. I really
Kava.
love
And Kava's
Kava.
still around. Good call. Who's
Yeah.
the most famous person you ever saw on campus?
I never was fortunate to see many famous people, but I remember we had like a town hall or an assembly with Bill Nye, the science guy.
Hey,
Pretty famous in my book.
absolutely. That's right. Is there a famous person you'd really like to work with?
Hmm. I feel like my whole world revolves around Achieve Miami, and so I always think about what we can do to better Achieve Miami. Of course, I'm in philanthropy, and there's a billionaire that lives across the street, the road, and I'm trying to knock on that door and be like, hey, so maybe not super celebrity, super famous in general terms, but he definitely is very successful.
Do you want to say his name in case he's
Yes,
listening?
his name is Toma Bravo. He's also Puerto Rican, so I think I have like a little, I'll be like, I'm a Puerto Rican, you're Puerto Rican. Maybe you can donate.
Mr. Bravo, if you're listening, reach out and we'll put you in touch with Laura Calero at Achieve Miami. Happy to do it. Anybody
Yeah.
else you want to shout out?
Um, my whole team, my boss, Rachel, if it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here. She took a chance on a girl with very little experience, only comms experience. And she said, you know what? I think you can run with it. You can do our marketing. And so I really, really appreciate her. Rachel, you're the best.
Wow. Laura, love catching up with you. Thank you much. Don't go anywhere because we're going to have a group conversation in a bit here. But for now, I'm going to pivot over to another good friend, Brandon Tran. Brandon, so good to see you, my friend. Uh, I will briefly drop some of your titles, but there are many. You are the co-founder and CEO of Challenge Us. You were an advisory associate for KPMG US. You are the former senior vice president for the Institute for Youth and Policy, and currently a deferred MBA admit for the Stanford Graduate Business School. Mighty impressive. Hello, Brandon.
I try, Kami.
You do more than try, my friend. You achieve. And I know you and I have had many conversations about nonprofits, and it's something you've been involved in for a really long time. But I want to go back into the memory banks, if you don't mind, and tell me about your first nonprofit experiences and how that impacted your life.
You'll probably remember my story about me and some of my high school basketball teammates running like a nonprofit youth basketball camps in the San Jose area to raise money for charity. So that was probably my first exposure, and then around the same time, I was trying to figure out like what I was going to major in for college and develop an interest in policy. So I got involved with some education nonprofits as well. But honestly, those experiences weren't nearly as meaningful as when I actually got to college and got involved with the Institute for Youth and Policy, where I thought I was going to be doing mostly policy work, but ended up doing pretty much all project management and business innovation. Um, and to my own surprise, I actually found myself enjoying that a lot more, which was unexpected because I had gone into college kind of with the plan of becoming an academic actually and becoming like a full-on Christian Growth style political scientist. Um, but now I'm working in consulting, pursuing an MBA. Um, and so that extracurricular experience was definitely the catalyst for that metamorphosis.
Love that. Shout out to Professor Christian Gross. Good shout out there. You mentioned the basketball program that you had launched. Not only was it impactful in your life, but it got a lot of national attention. And I think I remember you telling me that you ended up in some type of a magazine feature as a result of that experience. Can you remind me what that was?
Yeah, you're referring to the People magazine story, which was a strange sort of like mix of events. But basically, what happened there was my class was the COVID class, as in the one that didn't have a graduation. We're the class of 2020. And NBC and a few different partners had gotten together and organized a speech competition. The winner was gonna deliver like a valedictorian style address on national TV. I entered it, did not win, but I got runner up, and the consolation prize, which was a heck of a consolation prize, was getting featured in People magazine. And so that's how that happened somehow.
Wow. If that was a consolation prize, I mean, what was first?
It was the NBC address, and I think the winner also got to meet LeBron James, which was like my my hook, yeah, for what I really was trying to get out of the competition.
Oh, all right. Well, it's not too late to meet LeBron. He's still doing his thing in the NBA, so maybe that dream will come true later. But I did want to ask you about when you got into college. You talked about some of the experiences. I have a lot of questions for you there, but first one is really about. Can you remind me what brought us together? Like, why did you end up taking this Doing Good class? You already had nonprofit experience. Did you need the class? Were you looking for it to do something for you? What was the motivation for taking it? And what are some of the, or at least one highlight you remember from that experience?
Yeah, so that semester in particular was the fall 2023 semester, I believe it was, and that summer before I had sort of decided and done a lot of like career introspection. That was very much a crossroads moment for me in terms of like, okay, what am I going to do with my career and my life? And graduation's around the corner. And I decided, okay, I'm going to pursue like public sector consulting. I'm going to lean more into this business side of it, lean away from the political science part of it. And I think that semester I ended up taking mostly Marshall classes for the first time, despite being a Dornsife student. And your class I saw as sort of like the perfect intersection and the median to kind of moderate my I don't know my momentum towards like the business world. Um, and I saw it as almost like a way to kind of stay in touch with who I had been, while evolving at the same time. And certainly, it was a tremendous class. I think like all of us here, like we got a lot out of it. For me, for sure, I would say developing a relationship with you was something I couldn't imagine my college experience being absent of in retrospect. So it was ended up in retrospect, it gets being like a really critical class to take for sure.
Well, as much as you enjoy the class, I really enjoyed having you in the class, so much so that when you launched your own non-profit organization and asked me to be involved in it somehow, I was, do you remember, a pretty eager yes. I really wanted to keep our wagons hitched and sort of stay in each other's orbits. But can you talk a little bit about Challenge Us and what that nonprofit is, what caused you to found it, what kind of good work you're doing there?
Yeah, so what we do is we host global, I gotta get all the adjectives correct, global educational youth civics competitions. What we try to do is we intersect civics with all these types of different disciplines that you maybe think wouldn't. So, for example, we'll have a speech category, analytical writing, creative writing. We just opened an art category for our upcoming recent competition cycle. Um, and so far, we've experienced really tremendous amount of success. We've reached 1,500 students from over 100 countries so far, got invited to the UN, got an award at the National Conference on Citizenship. So it's been a good ride.
It sounds like a pretty great ride if in your first year of existing, you're being invited to the United Nations. Congratulations on that. You've got a platform here. What would you like people to do to be supportive of Challenge Us?
We actually, in just a matter of 2 weeks here, on November 10th, we're going to be launching our biggest and latest competition cycle. We're going to be partnering with Climate Cardinals, which, for those of you that aren't familiar, Climate Cardinals is one of the biggest organizations in the youth climate space. We're going to be partnering with them to co-host a climate-themed competition. That'll be the first time our organization has tackled the issue of climate. We've done different themes before, but this will be uh, this will be the first time we do climate, and it also coincides with COP30. So there's a kind of momentous component to it as well. And so that conference cycle is just around the corner. Follow us on our social media, our website, and to stay in touch and hear more about that as it becomes available.
Absolutely. Follow, challenge us, and apply for these contests. If you're eligible, go for it, or tell someone who is, so they can win some prizes and have some pretty amazing experiences. So Brandon, I know you are so steeped in the business world. You are a Marshall student. You understand. You worked for KPMG. You understand how business works. You're currently running a nonprofit organization before you go back to Stanford Business School. Can you tell me a little bit about the draw of nonprofit for you specifically, and how much of that mission-driven itch that Laura was talking about earlier, how much of that is it satisfying for you in your life right now? Is this something you would recommend to other people, or you're like, don't do it?
I mean, yeah, I think like Laura said, the fundamental draw of it is like the mission component of it, and for all of us, as evidence of our presence here, that's something that's remained important to us in our lives. I think there was a poll or a survey by PwC a year ago that said Gen Z had disproportionately more so than any previous generation cared about the social impact of their work, and again, more so than any other generation before, was even willing to compromise or sacrifice employment opportunities in service of like the greater good mission. Um, and certainly, I probably am one of those data points for sure. Um, and so I really love that in the nonprofit world, in the social impact world, the KPIs are measured in people and not in dollar signs. Um, and I think that allure is always going to be appealing for our generation. And it's what, keeps me coming back despite maybe other opportunities in traditional corporate strategy or whatnot.
Amen to that. I always found that so rewarding, was that you're actually influencing people. And then a lot of times you actually know those people's names and you see the kind of impact that you're making. And that's so powerful. Well, you ready for speed round?
Let's do it.
Okay. Best advice you've received about nonprofit work?
I think be willing to try anything. Like Laura said, we're going to be wearing a lot of hats in that industry. So be willing to try everything. Be willing to try a bunch of different stuff. Don't feel attached to things that aren't working, and feel emboldened to build on things that are working.
Love that. One or two books that have changed the way you think.
My favorite book ever is The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri. It's about a Indian American immigrant family in the Boston area. And me being like a first gen immigrant kid myself, it was not only relatable, but actually, I read it when I was in high school, and it helped me kind of introspect and understand my own identity and sense of self in a lot of ways. So it's a book I to this day still think about a lot.
I just wrote that one down too, The Namesake. Now I've got Fascinate and The Namesake to read. Uh, okay, favorite place to eat on or near USC?
Kami, I know you remember me in the Wednesday farmers market with
I
the
do.
teppanyaki. Yes, yeah. I think about that teppanyaki every Wednesday, being like, man, if I was at USC, that's what I'd be doing right now. Instead, I'm gonna, get some takeout or whatever. But yeah, that teppanyaki at the farmers market for sure.
I saw that stand today and thought about you. That's so funny. Who's the most famous person you ever saw on campus?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, right. The governor, movie star, and most accomplished bodybuilder of all time. No, that's a big C. Who's a famous person you'd really like to work with?
One of our goals for Challenge US, probably the crescendo that we're working towards right now, is eventually doing a sort of much like what we're doing with Climate Cardinals right now. Eventually get to the point where we do like an Amazon X Challenge US, or like a Nike X Challenge US, Snap X Challenge US. So if someone from their corporate social responsibility department is listening right now, check us out. I'm not difficult to get a hold of. We're not difficult to get a hold of. So anyone from not just like the companies I named, but anyone looking to get involved with Challenge US, that would be a fantastic opportunity. Yeah.
Uh, okay, you've got a big platform, so I'm glad you haven't asked. We always say if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's good on you for asking. Anybody else you want to shout out?
My team, I mean, Alvin, my co-founder, who I met at USC, Randy, Liam, Lauren, oh, and also, oh my gosh, the Institute for Citizens and Scholars, who's been one of our most critical partners, Dr. Audra Watson there and her team are doing really fantastic work to democratizing and decentralizing, but at the same time kind of streamlining and making mainstream the kind of like youth civic space. So I think they're doing tremendous work there, and they've been absolutely critical for our own growth and development as well.
Uh, uh, as proud as you are of them, I'm sure they're just as proud or more of you. So thank you for sharing all that with us, Brandon. And do stick around so we can have a group conversation in a bit here. And I do want to pivot next to another person I have nothing but awesome memories and of from being in the Doing Good class, and that's Sarah Zuluaga. And Sarah, you've got many titles attached to your name. Let me just say some of them here, and then we'll get into our conversation. But you are a humanitarian aid intern at Share a Meal. You're a former volunteer with the Justice Corps. You're a former treasurer and social chair of the Progressive Christians at USC and the former assistant director of the USC Undergraduate Student Government Assembly for Accessibility. And that's just a partial list. You're so accomplished, and it's great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Sorry, I got like a cold going on, so I'm congested.
Well, no worries. And I know you're calling in from North Carolina, so you're 3 hours ahead. So it's late in the evening for you. So thank you for making the time today, despite the time difference. Uh, we're excited to hear your voice and some of the lessons that you have for us. So my first question for you really is, you clearly have this propensity towards public service. It seems to be just a part of who you are. Where did that come from? What was your first experience like in nonprofits, and how did that impact your life?
So both of my parents are public school teachers, and we immigrated here from Colombia when I was 14 months old. So all of us are first generation immigrants. I grew up, in the US. But growing up with two, my mom taught English as a second language, and my dad taught special education for 12 years and then ESL. I was seeing a lot of service all the time, and I was very hyper aware of what it meant to be in a position of privilege, especially around other people who are like me, immigrant communities who didn't have this access to the same resources. My parents were highly educated. Many of the folks they were serving were not. So I think that kind of made me attuned. And from there, I just liked going out and doing things, and it's a fun way to get involved. So
Understood. And I'm sure your parents are so proud of you for carrying that mantle of public service into your life and career. And maybe that was part of the inspiration for why you ended up enrolling in this Doing Good class. But I'm wondering if you could remind me what brought us together. Why did you take that class in the first place? And what kind of stands out in your mind as one of the highlights?
okay, yeah. So there's a couple of reasons. Speaking of getting involved, so going back to your direct question about nonprofits, because I didn't answer that. So I worked for Share a Meal, or prior to working for Share a Meal, I volunteered for them. So when I got into USC, I knew I was interested in food justice work. I had done a little bit of that in high school, and so I looked up the org list because I'm particular, and I found all the food organizations that I found, and Share a Meal was the one that was doing kind of what I was most interested in. So I volunteered with them for a year, and then eventually they had internship positions. They had just some people graduate, and I was invited to apply. And I really love Share a Meal, and I wanted to know how I could help to make it better. Um, so I was already thinking about kind of the operational process and the business behind nonprofits, but I didn't really know how to take the next step forward on that. And then my RA actually was in the first cohort of your class of Doing Good. Natalia. She was my RA. She is now working as a lawyer in San Diego. She graduated from Vanderbilt. She's doing immigration law, but she raved about you. And I had seen like the name on I'd seen the Doing Good class name on the schedule of classes. So I decided to give it a shot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, well, shout out to Natalia. I definitely remember her, and I'm so pleased to hear that she's now working as an immigration attorney. I remember her project being about immigration in the class. That's very cool. And for you, so the idea was to help improve share a meal, and the work that Share a Meal is doing is so vitally important. And I wanted to understand for you, like working in that space in the nonprofit world and feeding people and providing sort of direct resources for people who are really, we'll say, post-trauma. They are in severe need. This is not preventative. This is the bad
Yeah.
stuff has happened. Now they need help. What are sort of the pros and the cons of working in that space for you personally?
Yeah. So, I, loaded question. There's a lot to unpack here. So, I'd say, it kind of Lauda brought up earlier, like the extremely high rates of burnout in this profession, like in the nonprofit industry in general. I think that's really important to consider, especially for yourself. There's a really good book I would recommend called Trauma Stewardship, which, as well as, there's another one called Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Those two books kind of like were what I had to read to learn how to take care of myself in this kind of work because doing kind of acute aid is really psychologically draining and tough. Because, I think foundational to this work is the idea that you're refusing to dehumanize people who are constantly being dehumanized by society. And that's labor. And yes, it's necessary. Yes, it's like imperative we do it. And it's still tiring. It's still work. And you still need to recover and rest. Um, so that's that side of things, like on the psychological interpersonal lens. Um, I also think it's really important to think about how much things intersect outside of like the immediate work that you're doing in your lane in front of you. My background's in sociology, and I'm constantly thinking like, okay, we need people who are on this issue in other ways. We need people who are voting. We need policy writers. We need it to not just be me. We need people who are voting with their dollars. So I think staying aware of exactly how much control you have, which really isn't that much. But knowing you're working in a team and in teams and collectives, there's a huge amount of power. That's what matters. It's like really holding on to that mindset.
Right. I understand, but you're saying to some degree there is a bit of a personal sacrifice because it's hard not to internalize a lot of the emotion of the job because this is heart forward work, and
Yes.
it hurts our hearts sometimes to see the bad stuff in the world that we are now charged with fixing.
Yeah, and I think Laura pointed out the part of the key to this work being understanding that you're mission driven. And I'd absolutely underscore that. You can't do this work if you're not there to care because, you taught me in this class very early on, you are taking a 30% pay cut by being there. But the 30% pay cut I think is made up for with like all the different experiences and all the different hats and like Brandon said, like the KPI is people, building authentic relationships and connections, like why we're alive. So you have to choose to focus on like what's going to nurture your personhood, um, and how to protect that because life is going to make it hard. Um, and also nonprofits are businesses. And so you have to think about like sustaining the business. You can't be a good business owner if you're burnt out. You just can't.
You just can't. You're right. You
You
just
just can't.
Just kidding. Well, okay, so we could go on for hours. This is fascinating and I love it, but I'm going to pivot us now to the speed round. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. First question is, what's the best advice you've received about nonprofit work?
Like care about stewardship, thank your donors, And in part two of that, I would say I just kind of said it, but remember, nonprofits are a business.
Great advice. Yes. One or two books that changed the way you think. You mentioned a couple, Trauma Stewardship and Burnout, The Secret to
Yes.
Unlock the Stress Cycle. Any other books you want to shout out?
Yes. Also, 1984, when I read it in high school, changed my life. It's one of those books. It's like I don't think I would know who I am if I hadn't read it. And Casey Davis, she's the author of How to Keep House While Drowning. She's also who I'd like to work with someday. If Casey, if you're listening, I'm skipping ahead to that question, please. I Let me at him. I have so many ideas. You've been really inspiring.
Love that. Casey, you heard it. You heard it. Time to reach out. What about your favorite place to eat on or near USC campus?
Um, Mana's, the Indian restaurant on Vermont. Um, I know it can be hit or miss for people. I really liked it. I also want to acknowledge that I like it because I can actually tolerate their mild spice and I have no spice tolerance. So maybe it's just because it's accessible to me, but I've heard good things from other people too.
Anna's all right. Great shout out. Who's the most famous person you've ever seen on the SC campus?
I did go to an event by her, so it wasn't random, but Jeanette McCurdy spoke. She when her book I'm Glad My Mom Died came out, she came and she spoke at campus, and it was one of the best memories I have at USC.
Wow, love that. You mentioned the famous person you want to work with, so we'll jump ahead to the last one, which is there anyone else you want to shout out?
Um, I talking about food and talking about like the political environment we're in. If you guys can probably think about the folks who are not going to have access to their food stamps benefits this month because of the government shutdown, please support your local food banks and other acute aid organizations. The need is really high right now. Thank you.
Yeah, great call. And thank you for suggesting that. We always feel like there's nothing more we can do, and yet the needs continue to escalate. And so there's some way for us to find a way to do more than we try. We try. So thank you for calling that out. May the government shutdown end immediately. Of
And actually, can I say one more thing in
course.
response to that? Municipal elections are where people have by far the most power. They're happening soon. Register to vote. Your vote matters locally in a way it doesn't nationally, to show up.
Love that advice. Absolutely true. Yes. Think globally, act locally, and you can't act locally as well if you don't register to vote. Okay, well, thank you, Sarah. Good talking to you again. Stick around. We're going to have group conversation in a sec here. But before we get to that point, I want to get to our fourth guest, someone I haven't seen in a while, my friend Keli'i Key Rubin. Keli'i, you've also got a whole lot of titles behind your name. Let me just say some of them. You're currently the program coordinator for the Berkeley Food Network. You were an ambassador for Africa Active here in Los Angeles. You were a former intern at the Golden State Warriors and the San Francisco Giants. And you're currently the Pinole Valley varsity football defensive back coach. So, Coach Rubin, welcome.
Right on. Thank you, Kami. Thank you for having me. Real quick, I just want to second what Sarah was saying. Please support your local, food banks and food assistance programs. The way the world is moving right now, it's needed more than ever. Our social safety net is in danger for a lot of people, and people receiving $30 to $50 a week or every other week, it does a lot. I mean, it might not seem like it, but it helps financially relieve them, and psychologically it frees up a lot of space. So yes, support.
Support. Amen, man, for sure. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Before we get into the now of it, let me ask you about the before of it. What made Keli'i Keli'i? And I want to understand you are so rooted in community. I can't think of the city of Richmond without thinking about you. Like you're so a part of it and care about it and want it to succeed and came from it. You know what I mean? Like I want to understand that compulsion to public service. Where did that come from? And what were some of your early experiences with nonprofits or public service and how did that impact your life?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're the city of pride and purpose, and honestly, my first real experience with nonprofits didn't come until like college. Between just like my ignorance and my family's ignorance surrounding it and like dealing with life's humble beginnings. Um, it didn't come, until college. But I will say like ideologies of community and just like my overall responsibility to it has always been present. Um, so I was raised by my grandparents who were born in the 30s. And like one of the things that they always taught me was, when you leave this house, you're not only representing yourself, but you're representing this household, this family, but also your people. And so it always instilled in me this like deep, deep connection to like all of my people, whether it's the city, my ethnicity, etc. Right? Um, but fast forward, I'm part of a lot of teams growing up, a different bunch of different athletic teams. My family takes part in some different toy drives, backpack drives, to help the community. And then you fast forward to college. I take part in like some friends and neighbors days, as well as like um, intern for the Giants. And it all felt right, it all felt good. But when I interned for Africa Active, that's when it kind of clicked for me that, this is where I belong. They connected me to LA's community and um, it just felt right. So, I wanted to be part of it.
Africa Active is a wonderful local organization. And I remember you mentioning it while you were taking the Doing Good class, but can you also remind me, like, what got you in that class? How did our paths cross? And what's something that you remember from that experience?
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to start a nonprofit. I mean, with all these ideologies of community, right? That's a lot of work. I did it, but it's a lot of work. But I guess some of the big highlights for me about your class was kind of like what Laura was saying about all the documents that we created, business plans that we fleshed out. I still use those to this day. I mean, I won a couple of grants, referencing them and like, trying to streamline my stuff to kind of like match that same energy that it was given. But also I think another major highlight for me was just you kind of taught me how to craft my life story in a way that it empowers and impacts like people outside of me. Um, and yeah, it was really cool to be part of that journey, but also like have a class experience that as well, crafting their own life stories.
I hear you. I feel like that's really a special ingredient for nonprofit leaders is that you are supposed to come into the work as your authentic self. And sometimes people don't want to be that vulnerable, but that's really what makes a really effective leader in the nonprofit space. You have to connect emotionally with other people, and you can't do that unless you really know who you are and lead with your heart. And you did that like a champ. So it's nice that we are now full circle and we've been teaching each other a lot of things. I've learned a lot from you too, my friend. I wanted to ask in the work that you've been doing in the nonprofit space, one, can you tell us about what the Berkeley Food Network is and does, and what are for you some of the challenges, not just organizationally, but like for you personally, as somebody who's working in in this nonprofit space, what's hard about it? What are some of the pros and cons of working in that space? And if you can't, just tell us more about the Berkeley Food Network.
Yeah, so Berkeley Food Network is a food assistance organization. We're kind of unique in the sense that we serve as a RDO, so we distribute food to like other nonprofit organizations like a food bank. But we also have this completely different sector or part of our organization where we um, distribute food directly to the community. And that's kind of what I'm tasked with, like overseeing, prepping, and like evaluating and figuring out how to improve. Um, and we do that through like a bunch of different facets. We have like mobile pantries at different like schools and like senior homes and etc. And then we also have like home delivery program. Um, and then like this is the really cool part is that we have a extremely large on-site distribution program um, that serves maybe 1,200 households in a matter of 2 days out of the week. Um, and the part that's like super, super cool to me is that our model is a choice model. So we're we're prioritizing and retaining like members' dignity by allowing them to kind of like have some say in what they want to choose and what they want to receive. Um, so it's kind of like shopping at a grocery store, and that's what we're kind of like building up towards is having our own grocery store that provides free food assistance to the community. Um, but I will say like the pros and cons for
Yeah.
um, oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just acknowledging what you said before about what the organization is, and now I'm real curious. What do you think are the pros and cons?
Pros simply, right? I love what I do, who I serve, and the team that I work with. Like we're a small team, but we connect on so many different levels and everything's pretty transparent. Um, I constantly meet new people and people who are not only passionate, but passionate about the things that we all do at my particular organization. Um, and I get the chance to always just continue learning, the ever evolving landscape of food assistance and the social safety net. Um, but also just learning about people's personal experiences that they go through on an everyday basis. Some of the cons, it's not as lucrative as a for-profit, but it pays well. You just gotta go to the right nonprofit. Um, and I love people. I'm a people person, but at the same time, I have a social battery
Mhm.
that occasionally needs to be charged. And so you don't get the chance to turn that off. And so, but I will say, like my organization, we do have a lot of paid time off to kind of like balance that out. So,
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's the point like Sarah was making. You got to take care of yourself too, and you got to recharge those batteries somehow so that you will be able to take care of other people in the course of your work. Those are some profound pros and cons, and I'm so proud of the type of work that you've been doing these days. So I want to ask if you are speed round ready.
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay, let's get into it. What's the best advice you've received about nonprofit work?
It's taxing and self-care is important. It's fulfilling, but it is taxing, so leave you with that one.
Yeah, that's fair. One or two books that change the way you think.
Not gonna lie to you, I'm not a reader. It's a war that I have within myself. I don't read that much, but
Okay.
I have been working on Dopamine Nation, which is like a book that just tries to help you channel balance or find balance in a world full of like pleasure and pain and whatnot. So,
Excellent. I wrote that down. I'm gonna check out Dopamine Nation. Favorite
mm.
place to eat on or near the USC campus?
So my wife actually put me on this one. This is a pupuseria. It's called La Flor Blanca. It's like a few blocks west of USC. And if you can't get with the pupusas, then I recommend you take the metro down to Santa Monica and go to Ye Old Kings for some pretty great fish and chips.
The Old King's Head. I remember that place on Arizona and Second. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. Most famous person you ever saw on campus?
Um, there was a lot of people and like cameras and crowds, so I can't say I personally saw anybody myself, but my wife said she had class with Miranda Cosgrove, so I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay, that's a good one. Famous person you really want to work with?
Uh, as a Raiders fan, I've been eyeing Mark Davis for a minute. Um, and like historically, the organization are like they're trailblazers. Right now we're losing, but it's okay. We'll get back there one day. But I just think like there's a great opportunity for community engagement and support because they've kind of left a hole in the Bay Area. I mean, people still love them, but we're hurting. We're hurting. So,
Or understood. Well, I was going to surprise you with another question, which was 49ers or Raiders, but I think you answered that one. Uh,
without a doubt, I'm Raiders all the way.
fair enough. How about the Athletics or the Giants?
So I'm not really a baseball fan, but I'll say the Giants since I worked for them.
Okay, okay.
Cop out.
Loyal to the employer. That's great. Anybody else you want to shout out?
Um, yeah, I mean, my team at Berkeley Food Network, Three Nico in Virginia and at Afric Active, um, and like my friends and family, my wife, and really just every experience and person that I've come across along this journey. I mean, it's the reason I'm here and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, well said, well said. Well, I had a chance to talk to all of you, and we've got a few minutes to talk to each other. And if I can, I want to pivot back to you, Laura. We started with you. You've heard a lot of your classmates or colleagues that share their stories. How are you processing all this that you're hearing?
Yeah, I think we all said things that we all agree with. It's really nice. Of course, I work in a nonprofit and my colleagues all work in nonprofits, like my teammates. But sometimes you can't be really honest with your teammates, right? Like you work in the same office, and so it's nice to speak to other like-minded people. None of my friends work in nonprofits. I'm the only one, so it's nice to hear that we all have kind of like the same thoughts, the same pros, the same cons. So it's not too much to process because it all makes total sense to me what everyone said. But yeah.
Fair enough. How about you, Brandon? How are you taking all this in?
I feel like I'm back in your office for office hours. But no, it's always nice to kind of have a community of peers to kind of talk about these different kind of things that we're noticing in our industries and with our work. I think probably all of us can testify to like once you graduate, it feels like you're a little bit kind of siloed and the kind of opportunities for conversation and for meeting new people, organic interaction and whatnot. It becomes kind of fewer and further between. So these sort of spaces, this sort of platform has been tremendous.
Yeah, for me, as I process what you're saying, I really want young people to be aspirational and don't tell yourself no. Wait for somebody else to tell you no. And if they're telling you no, then maybe you're not asking the right person. Find the one who will say yes. But all that's to say is it can be full of excitement and possibility. And we want people to dream big, dream big. But to your point, Sarah, sometimes we dream big and then we run out of gas because of like, we can't change the world on our own. And I'm wondering how did you end up being able to balance, self-care with the emotional load of working in nonprofit space, with the passion that you have for like, hey, let's make this world a little better because we can. And that's kind of the point of our even being on this planet.
Are you asking me
Yeah,
specifically?
sure. Yeah, I'm curious.
Um, really imperfectly or arguably poorly.
That's honest.
Um, I think I, I you have to get really clear on what your priorities are. And having a lot of introspection. Um, and also like not I don't want to say just introspection, but I kind of think of a lot of life as an internal negotiation or kind of like a triage. Like if you're thinking in a medical system, like, in an emergencies, there's the people who are walking, talking, who don't need to get checked out urgently. Those are the greens. And then there's the people who are going to die within 5 minutes of if they don't have immediate medical intervention. Those are the yellows. And then there's like the ones in between, your yellow, your oranges, your pinks. Figure out what's your non-negotiables
Yeah,
and like prioritize like those containers, your boundaries for yourselves. That's holy. If you can't make the time for that, you can't make the time. Be okay with having a limit of capacity because we're not machines, we're people.
yeah,
We can't run forever.
yeah. Anybody relate to that? I see a lot of nodding heads. Yeah. Is that work hard for you, Keli'i? Are you finding like sometimes there's the emotional toil of people who are food insecure, who, $20, $30 makes a big deal in their lives, and other people like $20 would fall out of their pocket and they wouldn't even stop to pick it up. You know what I mean? Like how knowing how consequential your work is, does that have an emotional toll, and how do you deal with that?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, as part of our home delivery program, we call our home delivery recipients every 6 months just to check in on them. And make sure their preferences are still the same and make sure they're eligible for the program. And you get a chance to talk with a lot of people and hear their story. And the last time we called, we ended up hearing a lot about, food stamp cuts and how it's really hitting some people hard. And they're like, I don't even know how I'm going to manage because we have a lot of parents and elderly on the program. But I think you just, I mean, I think you just got to take the wins, the small wins that you get every day with those hard stories you hear. Because for every hard story, there's another person who's telling you how thankful they are that your program exists, or that you're here serving the community and doing what you're doing. So you gotta take the good with the bad.
That's right. Sarah, you were going to react to that?
Yeah, to build on it. So I think my main contribution to this discussion is very much like if you're in nonprofit work, you have to be doing interpersonal work within yourself because otherwise you will burn out. You're just interacting with so many different populations, kind of having a different face, or way you're presenting yourself for both. Like the way that I'm talking to people I'm directly serving with is very different than when I'm talking to potential donors, right? The conversations, the way that I'm framing even my sentences are very different. The priorities that folks have are very different. And so you have to be like really aware of yourself, and taking care of yourself in order to do it sustainably. Um, to that, like I think a lot about how there's like certain I hate it. I hate it. But it's like, you know how like when you do things that your body's asking you to do and you feel better afterwards and you're like, "Ah, no, it was wise all along." Just like go on your mental health walks, write down your three things you're grateful for. It works. I hate it. Like I also think a lot about like gratitude is amplification of joy. So that's how I think about it. So when you're feeling really joyless, that's when you got to lean into the gratitude the most because you're training your body to remember and amplify that feeling in you when you don't have that reserve. And when you don't have that reserve, that's when you got to reach out to people. You can't do it all yourself. Don't try to. Just don't try to. You're gonna burn out.
Absolutely. It's a real testament to all the people who are doing frontline public service work, and that includes the teachers. Frankly, public school teachers, good on them. People are serving in the military, good on them. They are doing frontline work, sacrificing for the greater good. And so many of the people who are working in the nonprofit space, as you remember, like there's 1.9 million nonprofits in the United States right now. It represents a significant portion of the U.S. economy. And the people who are doing that work are doing it for the reasons we've all talked about. It is mission. We care about collective impact. We care about other people, and we care about that. We care about ourselves, of course, and our families and our local communities, but we care about the whole thing and looking out for each other. And I just think that mindset is so beautiful and something that we need to foster and nurture, even at the emotional toil that it sometimes extracts. Because every profession is going to have stuff that sucks about it for sure. Ours is just a little more personal and touches the heart. And like they say, you cannot touch the heart without hurting it. So I wanted to see, we've got only a couple minutes here, but any final bits of wisdom that you want to share before we leave for people who are considering work in the nonprofit space or considering impact just more broadly, and whether the nonprofit space is really the space for them. Any 20, 30 seconds thoughts you want to share?
Volunteer and intern as much as possible. Don't just do the typical volunteer work, get in the nitty-gritty of things, get into grant writing, some office work. Really see if the work is for you. All right.
That's great advice. Try before you buy. Get involved, get engaged, see if you like it. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that for people considering this form of impact?
Yeah.
Um,
Go
oh,
ahead.
so I was just gonna say, you can be passionate about one thing, right? I was very passionate about the environment. I still am, but I work for an education nonprofit. And when I applied to that job, they asked me, "Do you care about education?" And I was like, course I do. It's not my passion, but over 3 years working there, it's become a passion. And so if you are, again, this is just mission. Like you can be passionate about dogs, you can be passionate about food insecurity, but nonprofits are all one and the same in the sense that it's mission driven. We care about people. And so I wouldn't recommend you kind of stopping yourself from applying to work at another nonprofit because their mission is different than what you are personally passionate about. Because at the end of the day, like, we're all doing good work and you can develop that passion for other missions.
Right on. Well, Brandon, you'll get the final word here, my friend, and then I'll wrap us up.
I had been thinking this past week a lot about, if you remember during our cohort, you had brought on a speaker. I'm blanking on his name right now, but his whole message was, if you want to do social impact work, don't go into nonprofits. I don't know if you remember him. But I've been thinking about that a lot because one of the issues I think that's kind of like flawed about the nonprofit model is our fundraising isn't inherently tied to our per unit fulfillment of our value proposition. And so we could be doing our jobs satisfactorily, fulfilling the needs of our consumer audience, so to speak, but aren't inherently rewarded financially for that. And so we have to dedicate resources to fundraising and donor relations and grant and whatnot. And so what I'll give to anybody considering getting into the nonprofit world is, don't be afraid to innovate. There could be a new paradigm, a new way to do social impact, a new way to do what we do, that just kind of is waiting for the right person to tap into. And maybe that can be you.
Maybe that can be you. I love that note to end on here, folks. I want to thank Laura Calero. I want to thank Brandon Tran. I want to thank Sarah Zulwaga, and I want to thank Keli'i Rubin for sharing your insights, for our friendship, for the work that you're doing and doing good in the various forms that you are doing good. To those of you who have been watching on Facebook or watching on YouTube or listening to the Let's Find Common Ground podcast, thank you for listening. I hope you've been inspired today. Continue watching and engaging with the USC Dornsife Center for the Political Future so we can continue to show you that there is a pathway to a better political future for this nation. And sometimes that pathway is through young people and their civic engagement. Thank you for what you do. Have a good night, folks.